So I just feel like people who spend the most of their time and energy talking against the LGBTQIA community have deep suppressed attractions toward this community, or maybe they're just secretly they harbor their own insecurities about their sexuality. Because why are you talking about them anyway? Like, yeah, I said it. Oh, and another thing, we complain about the price of eggs and gas, but we do nothing but complain. I'm just saying, like, we still buy the damn eggs. We allow people to bend us over. We take it with no Vaseline. They take our money. We don't fight. We just moan and groan. The majority of us are just not built to demand respect, stand up for ourselves and others. Some of us are just built to judge, scrutinize, complain, and do zero or nothing. All right. That's no way to start the show, right? I'll start over. I'll be right back. Well, hello, and welcome to In Your Ear Radio. I am your host, Latoya. So very happy to be with you today on this fine Saturday. Um, yeah, it's okay outside. You know, the weather's nice. It's still boot season. You can throw on a light jacket. I see people walking around here with shorts on and no sleeves, and I'm like, y'all invented the cold and the flu and all this because why aren't you covered up? Why aren't you covered up? But anyways, it's a beautiful day here in Las Vegas. I'm just happy to be with you today. Thanks for joining me. For those of you who are here, I appreciate y'all so much for joining me live. Get ready to get in the chat, you guys. Watch, like, subscribe to my YouTube channel too. You know, things are changing, y'all. We might just have to do the YouTube thing. You know what I'm saying? With this IG and this Facebook and all the TikTok and all the different things that are happening in the world. So, yeah, subscribe to YouTube and tell your friends about the show as well. Okay, so getting into the topic, you know what we're going to talk about today? A conversation that I posted on my socials, talking about how are we having this conversation with our kids, our children, about gender identity. And today I have a very special guest, my co-host today, to join me to have this discussion. So y'all know how we do though. We get into all the current affairs or some of the current affairs, and we, give our take on it and just keep you abreast on what's happening on in the world as well. So we're going to do that before we get into the meat and potatoes braces of the conversation. So let's do that. So without further ado, let me go ahead and introduce our guest co-host for today. Definitely not just a friend of the show, but I consider family. Hung out with your girl when she used to come into studio at Vegas Raw, and we've been clicking ever since. So I guess I'm just gonna call you by day one, because since day one we've been rolling with your girl. So that's what's up. So I appreciate that so much. So let me go ahead and introduce the Dr. Roblesz. Hold on. Welcome.
Thank you for that warm introduction. You are definitely family in my eyes. So
yes. Oh, I like your shirt. That's a nice t-shirt.
I know, right?
What's up? I told you my day one. I love it. Thank you.
Yes, indeed.
Listen, sorry I missed you New Year's Eve, but listen, we're gonna connect. You know, I know you come to Vegas.
Listen, New Year's Eve was
about later.
that was not it. It was not what we intended for it to be at all. It's fine that you missed me.
I told you how I do the countdown. I do the New York time countdown because I'm expected to be asleep by 9 p.m. Vegas time. So
okay,
I just stick to my tradition. But that's what's up. So I want to give people a little background about you, because I did say Dr. doctor. So
Yeah.
tell us about that degree. What's that doctor stand for?
So I actually have a doctorate of education, so an EDD, and applied learning sciences with a concentration in metacognition and focused on a secondary learning experience in a math classroom. So that is a mouthful to say that I am a longtime educator and I love math.
Oh, that's what's up. What? Okay, so you love math. And I know you probably hear this a lot. You've heard it from me. I'm not a math person. I do know some people who are, and I just think y'all hella smart when y'all say y'all are.
Yeah.
But have you always been a math person, like since day one, or have you
Um,
this?
I would definitely say I've always been a math person. Math came easier to me than ELA and reading and English and all that other good stuff.
Yeah.
So one of my teachers, Miss Emmanuel, just happened to just figure out a way to get math to stick with me, or get ELA to stick with me through the lens of math. So that helped me to have an appreciation for numbers,
Okay.
and then also learn the English language because we can't escape that.
So, you at what age was this that you got the interest?
So Miss Emmanuel was my fourth grade teacher, and Black teachers and Black educators are important, y'all. Like if I call Miss Emmanuel right now on speaker on this radio show, she will answer the phone for your boys.
Oh,
So
what? Okay.
she and I,
Got them on speed dial.
yes, she is an amazing. All my educators from the school that I went to has been monumental in ensuring that I became the young man that I am today. So I appreciate all of them, and especially special shout out to my Black educators, because it took them not just knowing, the education, but also knowing what goes on in a Black household, and then also identifying like, hey, something might be amiss, something might be going on. Let me help you. Being proactive as opposed to reactive.
Yeah, that's what's up. Yeah, for me, yeah, I've always been on the intellectual side as far as language, literature and reading, and just being inquisitive and enjoying reading and writing and poetry and things of that nature. Always intimidated by math, but I always charge it to the teachers, because I felt like when I was in a classroom, I'm one of them kids that sit at the front of the class, number one, because my hearing is, I was born with, my hearing wasn't always great. And because I like to interact. I like to have a personal relationship with teachers. And so I like to be up front just so that I can engage and they can see me and we can communicate. And if you don't have that type of, teacher in the classroom, you're discouraged. And I've been in those environments where I felt like the teacher almost made me feel like I should be stupid because I wasn't, they weren't interacting and picking up on the conversation. So, I understand how important it is, and especially having Black students. I mean, Black teachers. People just don't realize it's the Black community that is so lacking. It's a low percentage of Black teachers out there, especially male Black teachers. I would love to see that more.
Less than 2% of Black male educators in the classroom in the United States of America.
So I think if we increase the pay, you think we can get more Black teachers, male Black teachers for sure?
Yes and no. Black education has become so nuanced. Black men just aren't going to deal with certain things, and you just know this from how the Black male is constructed, right? So they're not going to go into a classroom space and continue to be disrespected by kids, to reach out to parents, and parents is cussing you out. They're just not going to do that. There are Black male teachers that do it, so don't get me wrong. That's the 2% that make up that stake.
Yeah.
But then you have to think that the Black man is traditionally one who takes care of the household, the one who normally is supporting the household, the one who is demanding of respect. And there's a certain thing about being an educator that you just have to but be okay with correcting certain behaviors, be okay with a certain level of like, listen, if I know I'm walking into a middle school, I know that a little 12-year-old is going to try me today. Like, I know this, like, I'm not going to be upset that they tried. Now, how I respond and redirect that behavior, deal with that through positive reinforcement, through all of the things that I learned through teaching, then that's how I do it. But then you also got to think, Black men aren't going to school to be educators. They're going to school and majoring in finance and literature, film in some cases. They don't get that training to be an educator like how I did. I went to school to be a teacher. So classroom management and knowing how to decompress and knowing how to redirect behaviors through a classroom management class, they don't get that because they've been, there's a teacher shortage. So they just taking them in and just pushing them into a classroom without any sort of robust background or like tools and resources to be successful.
Wow. I think you bring up a good point, and it's sad. It's very sad. I was watching Love Is Blind. There was a black couple on there, and you just made me think of this. The guy, he's real short with his answers, and he seems like he's always on the defense. And everybody brought this to his attention, and his response was, "I work with kids." And I was like, that was a BS response. I'm like, that's the easiest environment to work with because I feel like as adults we have the upper hand. And so I was like, yeah, you just be making up stuff. But just hearing your perspective saying that you go in really on the defense because these kids be lit at the age of 12, I wasn't lit. I had my hormonal issues. I realized a lot of the time that I got into trouble, it was around my PMS time. I didn't know that then, but looking back, it was usually around that time. But I really dismissed him because I was like, kids? You can't even deal with kids? What, know? So it's a different perspective.
And it's not just dealing with kids. Like, I think teaching math is like 5% of what I do.
Okay.
It's all about helping kids control emotional regulation, learning helping a kid become who they are, all of that. Like, it's so many other things that goes into being a teacher. That's only a small percentage of it.
Wow. Listen, we definitely need more teachers out there. We definitely need to advocate for higher pay and all of the things that you're saying, the psychological education that they need. I remember we had child development and things like that in high school, besides wood shop and all the other, training, things that we had in school that we don't have now. But yeah, I think that's very necessary. And you raise a very good point, just saying, psychologically, teachers are mentally prepared to come into the classroom. And a lot of times we're getting a lot of, just what do you call them? The alternate, when their teachers absent, what do we call that? The
substitute teachers.
Substitute teachers. Thank you. And they come in just, really just trying to get paid. You know what I'm saying? They got to live, they got to eat, right? So they're not even prepared. And I've heard the stories where people are telling me the kids is lit, they cussing back. And I'm like, I can't imagine being in a room like that. And I say that without having any experience that wouldn't happen with me.
Right. It's also, and we'll get into this a little later during the show, but it starts at home. And I think that we're doing soft handoffs now where the parent is dropping off their kid at the schoolhouse and saying good luck, and then picking them back up and expecting, they're almost like when you go to drop off your car for maintenance. I'm dropping my car off for maintenance. I expect a tire rotation. I expect the air filters to be done, and I expect my oil to be changed. I come back, I get in the car, I drive off. Everything's supposed to be perfect. Knowing good and well.
Kids still got the same genitalia, correct?
Say it again.
Look, your kids still got the same genitalia too, right?
Right. Yes. Okay. So I don't understand where parents are like expecting this little sort of factory sort of deal. No, this is a partnership. Like, this is, I am supporting your kid for 8 hours a day. You have them for 16. There's a difference there. I'm already at a disadvantage because I don't have them the entire day.
Yeah.
And then even more so if I'm middle school and high school, so I only have them for 60 to 90 minutes a day. So just imagine, I see your kid for 90 minutes out of a day. You have them for the other 16.
Yeah.
Help me help you, Frank.
It starts in the home. It definitely starts in the home. So are you still teaching now? Because I know that you got into the tutoring with the math and more, and I want you to tell us about that as well.
Yes. So I am no longer teaching full time. I opened up Math and More, which is an acute mathematics firm aimed to simply debunk the myth of I'm not a math person through personalized tutoring and supporting adults be better in their practice at teaching math. Okay. And so I'm no longer in the classroom full time. I do that full time, and we support educators, teachers, students, parents through our program to ensure that, the kids are reaching their goals.
Yeah. So are you accepting new enrollments right now?
Of course. We're accepting enrollment all the time. Our fees are very nominal because we do everything virtual. Our overhead is very low. Okay. So we really do meet parents where they are. We start tutoring sessions at low as $75 a session. And then it increases, obviously, the amount of time that you want to tutoring. So if you want tutoring once a month, or if you want tutoring once a week to twice a week, we have packages and support every parent. And there are some scholarships through the generosity of donations and grant money. So even if that nominal fee is a little too expensive, we can build a program that's supportive of your student still through some scholarship support.
That's what's up. That's what's up.
Yeah.
So yeah, you guys, if you have children, is there an age gap or age range that you?
We honestly support all kids K through 12.
Okay.
We start our virtual tutoring program from 3rd through 12th grade. But we support everybody because we have IEPs and 504s and special education resources, all sorts of stuff. So y'all just hit us up and we'll make sure that you're pointed in the right direction.
Okay, y'all hit them up, Math and More. You can hit the IG on the socials, Math and More. That's all socials, right?
Yep, Math and More.
Listen, I saw you. Look, you doing your thing. I saw you on Roland Martin. You know what I'm saying? I saw you. You know what I'm saying? Flexing.
Yeah.
I was so proud to see you as well. I know you were there introducing Pi Day, right?
Yes, Pi Day is coming up, y'all, in T-minus 58 days and counting.
Yeah.
Pi Day is March 14th. But we celebrate it typically on a Saturday. And this Saturday, we're going to be celebrating Pi Day March 15th. And all of the information, all the press release, all of that stuff is coming out a little bit later this month. So I think January 29th is the day that it's officially going to be released. So you all stay tuned, save the date. March 15th will be right here in the Atlanta area, tossing pie, eating pie, all things pie. My mother makes some pie. She brings it down. There's pie eating contest. There's pie decorating contest, circular musical chairs. We have sponsors from all over, from Six Flags down to the steam truck. One of our partner schools, the Simple View Academy, is there. It's literally just a mathematical event, so everybody should be there.
Yeah, I've seen the video. It looks so fun. I need to get back to Atlanta. I haven't been there since my early 20s, so I'm missing out. But you guys also, you go on a website. There's other ways to support if you can't be present. You know, sometimes they have nice hoodies and T-shirts and mugs and all kind of ways that you can support. So go to Math and More, and if you want to support this movement, that's what's up. Yo, if you guys don't know who Roland Martin is, he is the owner of the Black Star Network. That's an independent Black-owned company that gives us a reel on what's happening in our world and around in our country and around the world. So listen, you know what I'm saying? For him to be on that platform is awesome.
I was honored to be in his presence.
Yes, that's what's up. He cool. Is he a cool guy? No, I like, you know,
he is phenomenal. He's
nice vibe.
He treated me like I was family, like I was a co-host on his show for years.
Oh, that's what's up.
The best experience ever, and one of the largest press things I think I've done thus far, to be honest. So it was honestly an honor to have somebody of his stature and be on his network, on a network. Like it was just everything it could be. Yeah,
and you did good. Yeah, it felt like you was, you know, relaxed and feeling the vibe. So Pi Day, what is pie anyway? For us people that we don't really do math, what is pie? Cherries and peaches and.
So pi is a mathematical constant, 3.14, which you see right here in my background. It is what we use to do the circumference to a ratio. That is, it is a ratio from the circumference to the diameter.
I can hear you though, but I'm just letting you know you're frozen.
Got it. I will try to fix that in just a moment. So when you change topics, but Pi Day is a mathematical constant, 3.14. So that's why we typically celebrate it on March 14th, and then we celebrate at 159, which is the next 3 consecutive digits of pi. So pi is an irrational number that goes on and on and on forever. It never ends. It never stops. It doesn't terminate. So that's what defines it as an irrational number. So yeah, that's what pi is literally the ratio of the circumference, which is the measurement around a circle, and the diameter. And that's how you're always able to get 3.14 to some degree.
And I just added up the time. You said you celebrated 159. I added that up in mathematics. That number is 5 which equals power. So in numerology and in mathematics, which is something we study in the 5% Nation, equals power. So I just thought that was quite interesting mentioning that. So yeah, so you're still frozen, but we can hear you. So we're going to work with you.
Okay.
Shout out to Belinda, who's live on YouTube. Thank you so much, Belinda, for joining us in the chat. She said, peace and blessings. Pi Day. Hooty hoo. That's what's up. Yeah, that's dope. So also I was listening to Terrence Howard. Is that his name? Yeah, he's an actor. You know, y'all seen him in all kind of movies. That man is a math genius, right? And he posted something. He was posting something in reference to just numbers and how numbers are relative in so many different ways, and it still got confusing to me. But he said when he mentioned 1 times 1 equals 1, and he was like, you know, explaining how, you know, how does that make sense? I was like, you know what? I had to stop and think because I had never, you know, thinking back, when's the last time I did 1 times 1? But 1 times 1 does equal 1. And then I brought it to your attention. I was like, what is this all about when it comes to numbers? That's why people are so confused. And so, you know, you explained that numbers is also relative to language. And so I want you to elaborate on that a little bit more before we move on. Are you able to talk, or do I need to remove you because you're still frozen?
I'm trying to fix this. I don't know why you can hear me, so
yeah,
that's fine. I don't know why it's frozen because I literally meet all day, every day virtually. So I don't know what is happening.
That sucks.
But the reason why 1 times 1 is 1 is because of the identity rule. And so that's why math is not just numbers. Mathematics as a whole, the concept is a language. So you have to understand that there is going to be certain nuances about mathematics that is going to be defined by systems. Literally, that like math is also made up of systems. So we have to remember that we can't just utilize numbers as our point of contact for mathematics. If you don't know the language, or if you don't know how things are being set up, or if you're not aware of like different terminologies. If I ask a kid in a math class to solve the slope of a linear equation on a coordinate plane from this point to that point, they lost me. But I do know that the kids can go right 6 places and go up 5 places, find that point, and then plug in some numbers, because then at that point we're using the slope formula and subtracting. It's the vocabulary that loses the kids during mathematics, not actual math itself.
Because 2 times 2 is 4, but 1 times 1 is 1.
Yes, but the identity theorem says that any number multiplied by 1 is itself, and because 1 is also 1, it's going to be 1. That makes
and that's part of geometry, right? With the theorems.
All numbers have math. So geometry is heavy in theorems, yes, because it's proofs and things of that nature, but all stages of math has some sort of definitions or defining and limits and all of that other good jazz.
Okay. And then I'm going to go ahead and give a shout out to Pieces of She. Thank you for joining us live on YouTube. She said, what up? I said, hey, Miss Latoya and Mr. Roblesz. Hi, thank you for joining us. So I'm going to get into, you know, some current affairs. I'm going to take you off so you can see if you can reset, and then I'm going to try to hop you back in. So I don't know what you can try to do on your end, but I'll just remove you for a second. Maybe you can still hear, but I'll go ahead and get into some of these current topics, okay, and give you a chance to fix, because I want to see, you know, I need to see you live and in color, baby.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
I got you.
Thank you. So again, thank you all for joining us live on Facebook and YouTube. You know, we're going to get into the conversation about how are we teaching our kids about gender identity. And this is all prompted from a conversation that I saw posted on Facebook that said basically normalize teaching your kids that being gay is not normal. And so, you know, I just needed to get the takeaway from others, you know, just to see, you know, what does that mean? And what does that mean to those of you? You know, a lot of us have children. A lot of us are in, you know, have children in school. And, you know, as time progresses, this is a conversation that we're having because we now are having this conversation more so because it is more accepting in our world today to be gay openly. So a lot of people feel threatened. So a lot of people feel fearful. A lot of people feel like they're being, you know, overshadowed in the homosexual community. And so I just wanted to have that conversation. But before we get into that, I want to talk about some of the good things that are happening that will benefit us in the United States. And let me see if I can get Mr. Roblesz back on. You ready to get back on, brother? All right. Okay. So yeah. All right. 1 2 1 2. How you doing?
I'm back. I'm here. I don't know what.
Zach, live and in color. That's what's up. That's
Yeah.
what I like. Okay. All right. So, some of the great news I heard under the Biden administration, and when they were going to remove the credit, remove medical from the credit reports, and that's supposed to go into effect in a couple of years. But we have this new administration who's already drafting up paperwork. Mind you, none of the Republican department voted to support this bill, but they're expected to remove to try to halt this. So just so for those of you who may not know, the medical debt will, according to the Biden administration, it has been approved that the medical debt will be removed from credit scores in less than 60 days. And I think that's an important thing to say. It also says from credit reports. So I'll say that it's both, but it's expected to remove an estimated 49 billion in medical bills from credit reports. That's about 15 million consumers, and that includes 170,000 Nevadans. American will no longer have to decide what's more important, right? Their health or their credit score. In January of 2025, the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau approved a new regulation that prevents nearly all medical debt from appearing on credit reports, no matter the amount. So previously, I think it was sent back in 2023, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion, they did exclude medical debt under $500 on consumer credit reports. So this makes it so that it's even higher. So that means all of it. And also in 2023, the CFPB, that's the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, logged thousands of consumer complaints about the debt collections, with 11% pertaining to the medical debt. So the common complaints included that, there were inaccurate medical bills or being asked to pay bills that should have been covered by insurance or financial assistance programs. So, I understand that because, like I said, I went to the ER one day. They tried to give me a little pill. Like I said, it was so small I couldn't even see it with my glasses on. And I refused it twice. But when I got my medical bill, it was a $500 charge for this baby pill that I never used. So I had to go in and dispute that. You know what I mean? So these medical facilities, these doctors, they doing the most. So I respect that. So what's your take from that? What are you feeling about that? Having that off? I know you celebrate that, right?
So first of all, let me caveat and say that you are a math person by looking at that invoice and saying that I did not take this. This is too high. Take this off. That math is all numbers, and it's your bills, your invoices, everything that you did on a daily basis.
Okay.
With that said, I 100% agree with this. In order for us to create equitable access, we have to ensure that we're evening. Is that a word? Evening.
It's going to be today in Black.
Okay. Leveling the playing field, evening it out. So that way everybody can have access to what we claim to be the American dream. So I'm 100% pro anything that is going to level the playing field. As you all, and the student loan debt too. Like, I know that wasn't the actual conversation, but like that is also something that Biden did in his administration and continues to do. So I'm waiting for my number to be called, but yeah. I'm 100% in agreement with everything that the administration did over the last 4 years. It's just a pity that it wasn't front row and in the media the way some of the other things were.
Yeah, I support that as well. And then they did the $35 cap on insulin. That was one thing I was really proud of. Rest in peace to my mom, who was a diabetic, and one of the things she complained about was being able to afford medication. So even people that have Medicare and Medicaid, they struggle to pay the copay. So that was a big deal. Again, the Republican Party, nobody voted to support this bill. It did pass because we had the majority in the House and the Senate at the time. But there's a Pennsylvania Republican, Scott Perry, along with 15 other House Republicans, are co-sponsoring a bill to repeal the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022, which includes the $35 cap on insulin. So this was something that was authorized. It was a $369 billion energy and climate change initiative also included in this bill. Again, 0 Republicans supported. And again, they are prepared with this new regime coming into effect to overturn these things. So, it just bothers me having this conversation because I know how so many people sat out and didn't participate. And then there were people who voted in the interest of y'all's incoming president. that are now going to suffer, because a lot of people who, would benefit from any kind of medical assistance, be it the Affordable Care Act, the cap on insulin, and even energy bills, live in rural areas. And the majority of rural areas are people who are white skinned. This limited out-of-pocket prescription drug co-payments of Medicare Part D subscribers to just $2,000 annually as well, which is a beautiful thing, right? And for nearly 19 million Americans, this will also mean an average savings of over $400 in 2025. And you have the Republicans fighting that. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention of what's happening, what's coming up besides Project 2025.
What gets me about this whole regime and what's actually about to go into place is that, what is it to you? Like, what effect does it have on you and your person that somebody else is paying? Because you're probably still paying full price, or because of the amount of money that you make, because there is a certain dollar amount where you become uninsurable.
Mm-hmm.
So, and don't get me, don't quote me on what that dollar amount is, but most rich people, and I'm talking like hundreds of millions and billions of dollars, you're uninsurable. Like, you can't get health insurance, right?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And I didn't really know that.
You got
it. So I'm like, I have health insurance. So I mean, so I ain't reached that tax bracket yet. But I just, what is it to you? Like, why is it that somebody's auntie and grandmother who needs insulin to ensure that their daily functions are met and their needs are met is okay? Is there not other things in the world or other things in America that we could be focusing our attention and harboring our support? If you are for the people, which is what your job is for, you're voted to represent the people. Which people are you representing by creating a bill that is supposed to repeal something that is making life more affordable for the daily American?
To the majority of Americans. But I'll tell you what it is to them. They have a vested interest in this, in the insurance companies. They have a vested interest in the stock market. So they're making money. They have a vested interest in the lobbyists. So that's who their God is. They're wedded to money. So that's who they pray to every night. They pray that this bill will get repealed so that they can continue getting kickbacks from the insurance companies, from whatever lobbyists, whatever incentive they're given to promote this, because they like eating steak and using a pinky finger to pick out, to clean their teeth. They like living that life because their insurance is straight. And like you said, you make a certain amount of money, society assumes you can afford it, which I imagine you can. But bottom line is they don't care about people, because they are wedded to something. Their interest is in the pharmaceutical companies and their investments and things of that nature. So that's what it is, in my opinion.
It's unfortunate, but yeah.
It is. And shout out to finally revoking something. The red dye is now prohibited. The U.S. regulations banned the dye called Red 3 from the nation's food supply nearly 35 years after it was barred from cosmetics because of potential cancer risk. So you took it out of cosmetics, and now you're just now taking it out of food. Make it make sense, Jesus.
Listen, that red dye has been a topic of conversation and education for quite some time.
Yeah.
Because, and again, y'all, I am not a medical doctor. I am just a doctor of education, but I've sat in on plenty of IEP meetings with reports from medical doctors, psychologists, all of these medical practicing professionals to know that it is important for us to not put certain foods into our children's body before a certain age, before pubescent, before child development is fully taken place, because it stunts their growth, literally. And I know that's something in a Black household that we used to say, like, oh, don't feed your kids coffee because it's going to make them short and things like that. Yeah. But some of this stuff holds some truth. And now we see through this repeal of this red dye that, yes, this was actually true. Like, we shouldn't have been giving our kids this. It led to hyperactivity. It led to all of these similar disorders that are covered under the Special Education Act. Yes. There are 13 designations under special education and other health impairment. The amount of time I've seen ADHD, other health impairment, all of that, coupled in with a report from a doctor saying, please don't give my kid this, and red dye was one of those items that was on that list that then as a school we have to adhere to, because this is a legal document that we have to like, okay, well, when we're handing out snacks, we got to make sure we're handing out snacks that are not flaming hot Cheetos and all of that, which I don't believe as a school system we should be doing anyway.
No.
I think that there was a time that we were trying to give out snacks to kids to motivate them to do classwork, and everybody is motivated through food. So I'm not even upset about that initiative. But then we had to be more conscious of what we were giving the kids. So I agree, healthier snacks are always an option. And when you tell kids, hey, listen, I ain't got hot Cheetos, but I got some organic Chip Ahoy cookies or some this, that, and the third. What they gonna do? They gonna turn it down? I ain't never seen that near kid turn down no food.
So they don't be outside of the school protesting tomorrow. Hell no, we won't.
No, they'll eat those healthy snacks. Now, what they do outside of the school system and all of that stuff is totally their prerogative. But inside that building, when we're handing out snacks, I'm handing you something somewhat healthy. I'm not gonna say we in here eating veggie chips, but I'm gonna make sure that you have a combination of snacks at your arsenal.
Yeah, that's crazy. It's really crazy. But the food manufacturers will have until January of 2027 to remove the dye from their products, while makers of the ingested drugs will have until January of 2028 to do the same. Other countries still allow for certain uses of the dye. I wonder what countries these are. I know Canada ain't with the BS, and there's other countries as well. But imported foods must meet the new U.S. requirement. So in its place, they will be using beet juice. It's carmine and a dye made from insects and pigments from foods such as purple sweet tomato, radish, and red cabbage. Which what I'm learning is in some countries they use this for stuff like Doritos and chips and hot Cheetos per se already. So I mean, I understand that, these things went into effect because it was cheaper to create, these chemicals and produce them. You made more money. Like I said, some people's God is money. So they sacrifice the health and well-being of this country, the people, the humans in this country, in order to make money. And now I guess they've made enough money. They're getting enough people in the hospitals. They're getting enough people in the graves. And so now they're going to fall back a little bit. I don't know. But that's what it is.
That probably got him, because you was making all that money, but then you was paying it all out in liability insurance. So
yeah, that's exactly what's happening. So it sucks. And another thing that sucks is I'm just reading about now they're saying that braiding hair, such as what I have on my head, is also subjected to causing cancer. I can't.
Oh.
The hell, what can we do with our life?
My hair twisted up too right now. It's just in a bun.
Listen, so basically synthetic hair, they do whatever they do to process. I never really thought about it to that degree. I have used different types of hair where I got the itches. I'm allergic to hair dye, so I have to be really careful about, what I put in my hair, or because I'll break out and I'll be looking like Gina on Martin when her hair like this. In real life, y'all, not on TV, I'll be looking like Gina. So I'm very, careful about certain things because I'm a very, allergy prone person, but that sucks. So, there's going to be more research done. Dr. Raven Braxter spoke to this. Y'all can go to her IG to learn more. And also she offers, other natural braiding hair products that you can use instead. But it's just really sad because it's been over 20 years, I think now, since I've permed my hair, and it wasn't because of hearing about chemicals causing, fibroids and cancer and things of that nature, but just because I just felt like it was harmful, that stuff soaking into your skull and into your brain. And so, knowing now, what I learned later, I was happy that I stopped then, but I can't win. These are protective styles that I enjoy because I don't have to deal with my hair working out and just day-to-day life. I can just get up and go, and I'm just addicted to it. So to hear this is really, really sad. So,
But honestly, everything is now being oversensitized, to be totally honest. I mean, I haven't done the research to say that braiding your hair is actually causing cancer, but like, how long has that study been? Like, now being somebody who's done research, how long has that study been in effect? How many people did you study this for?
Yeah.
What was what's that word? what was the variable factors? Who did you study it on? Did you study it on 100 white women? Did you study it on 100 black women? Did you
lab
use
rats.
did you use lab rats? Did you use women and men? Like, there's so many nuances that goes into this. I personally would want to know a little bit more.
Yeah. So for those of you just tuning in to In Your Ear Radio, thank you so much. Be sure to comment in the chat, Facebook and YouTube. We're going to get into the subject of just discussing what are we teaching our kids about gender identity, but I definitely want to get into some of the things that are happening in our world as well. So we're touching on that as well. So stick with us, you guys. We got a lot to talk about. I also want to talk about this up and coming inauguration. We know it's falling on MLK Day. But this inauguration, Michelle Obama said, "Nah, baby, I ain't going to be able to do it."
Right.
She said, "No, baby, I ain't gonna be able to do it." It's just really crazy that we're even, during this season finale. I look at it as a season finale of the United States as we know it. People really don't think it's gonna be that big of a deal, but the changes are happening so swiftly. You got Twitter, saying we're not gonna. Was it Facebook saying they're not gonna fact check? We already know what Twitter's about because we had Elon buy Twitter in order to promote the election of y'all's incoming president. We got the TikTok issues. Like, a lot of people are stepping down. MSNBC, the president, a lot of journalists are stepping back. Like, a lot of things are happening to, in the favor of y'all's incoming president. And so I understand, not to mention all the things he said and just perpetrated out there into the universe about the Obama family. So I can respect why she's not there. And then, Barack, they said he's still going. So I don't know what's up with that, but I'm not mad about it. I'm not mad about her. I am mad about Carrie Underwood, even though I don't listen to her music, because she said she's just supporting American unity. Nothing about this inauguration identifies with unity. This is a man who is racist. He's been convicted and charged with discrimination, housing discrimination. He, tried to convict 5 innocent minors of raping a white woman. Like, he still says they're guilty, even though they were exonerated. Like, he said the worst things about Black people. He's on record being charged with sexual assault. 34 felonies. Damn. Like, how is this? We uniting with this fella? Is that what we
doing? Yeah, that's what they're doing. That's what them people is doing.
And Nelly, he's now going to be performing at the inaugurational ball. He's canceled in my mind. Y'all canceled Chrisette Michele. Y'all took her through things. She had miscarriages, depression. I think she contemplated suicide. She went through it. Y'all better be canceling these other people like Snoop. He did a crypto ball Friday, taught it crypt, like he was banging with it. I don't know the sound, but the cryptocurrency ball that included Soulja Boy and a non-factor to me was what's his name, Rick Ross, who also in his music, he's Trump adjacent because he had in his music, slipped her Mickey. She ain't even know it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I get it. You Trump adjacent, but what are y'all thinking about this inauguration? What do y'all think about these people who are celebrating this man coming into the new regime? This is wild.
I think when people are, well, I'm not sure if you know the numbers. Let's start there. The numbers of people that said that they wanted to change their vote after the election took place, like Google released the numbers and all that other good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
People first thought this was a joke. There's nothing a joke about this election. I think that America is going through a very somber time right now. And to be honest, Auntie Michelle declining to go to the inauguration, I'm with her. I'm not even like, I'm nowhere near her statue, but when Auntie Kamala Harris was about to win and she was on the roll, I put in my ticket request with my senators to be at that inauguration, right?
Yeah.
When Trump won, they sent a thing saying, we're following up. We want to know, we need final counts, this, that, and the third. I didn't even respond. Ain't nobody going to that. For what?
I ain't gonna be able to do it.
What are we going to that for? And did you hear about that HBCU, I believe in Mississippi, that was trying to raise money to go to?
Oh, yeah. I think they raised all of it, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm happy that they do, and I hope they get a flat tire on the way there. Because first of all, what are you going to this cotton picking event for? Like, what? Like, this man has done everything but call us a nigga to our face.
Yeah.
And I just don't know why any Black person would stand with him, that has
Yeah.
any sort of moral backing. And while we can't measure morality,
Right.
there just should be a level of just, I'm not with it, that as a people, we should be like, yeah, no, like that's not happening. I'm good. There should be not one person of color, mixed race, um, anything. Like, and y'all, like, there should
Yeah.
just not be there. There should only be one shade of anything on that. That, and honestly, it shouldn't even be them there. But the
Yeah.
ones who voted for him and then y'all support him, go ahead, y'all go to this event, this circus act that we're about to have for the next 4 years.
Yeah. It's definitely gonna be a circus act.
I'm
And
just
it's
not.
scary to even think about what's to come. Like
Mhm.
people really sleeping on, what we up against. Like they really have no idea how serious this is because, it's for them it's just, oh, this is just business as usual. But they're not looking at all of the changes that are going to be made, through Congress and the Senate and the legislations and things that we're going to be affected by. And even Biden came in just basically saying that, there's an oligarchy coming into effect, the small percentage of the wealthy, which is like the 1% or less, are running shit. You know what I'm saying? So it's like it's scary. It's really scary to think about.
It really is. And honestly, if I was, I don't. If I was Biden and them, I wouldn't even be going to the inauguration either. I would just be, I would just be packing up my stuff because at this point, my job is done. I did my job. It's yours now. That's literally, I mean, that's like literally me resigning from my job and then ushering the next person in. Like, this is just all a ceremony that's for naught. He was gonna be sworn in. Let him Secret Service and everybody else be sworn in. If I was Biden, I'd be on Air Force One until it's not Air Force One no longer, and be riding on down to Hawaii somewhere to be on somebody's island with a Mai Tai and a cigar or something, because ain't no way.
Listen. So at the top of the hour, you guys, definitely we're going to get into this conversation. I'm going to touch on a couple of more things. And again, you're here sitting here with your host, Latoya, and my very special guest host, Dr. Roblesz, is in the building, in the house. Okay, that's what's up. I'm so happy you're here with me today. I get to see your face and just, bounce off you with ideas and just, your perception of what's going on. So, so also Biden, he commuted 2,500 crack cocaine sentences. And these were people with non-violent drug offenses. He described as disproportionately long. He said that the latest round of commutations is going to individuals who received lengthy sentences based on discredited and outdated sentencing practices, including distinctions between crack and powder cocaine. But as senator, Biden helped to craft the 1986 bill that gave someone who sold 5 grams of crack cocaine the same punishment as a 500-gram powder cocaine seller. So I guess he's righting his wrongs, maybe, I don't know. Because it was like 101 ratio disparity against street level sellers. They got harsher sentences than wholesale sellers, 100 to 1. And that's according to the U.S. Sentencing Commission, which concluded Black offenders suffered and were hit with the most severe sentences under the regime. And in 2010, Congress reduced that ratio to 18 to 1. I don't know, but I'm happy he commuted them. Just so you guys know, a pardon means that your charges are forgiven. A commutation just means that your punishment has been lessened. So maybe your time was reduced. So finally, okay. And California is still burning, y'all. 27 people reported dead. The confirmed names of 13 of those 27 have been published. Over 57,000 acres are burned. It's a lot going on. And of the 8, 2 of the 8 fires that took effect, 2 are still fully not contained. The Palisades, 43% contained. Easton, 73% contained. It's really sad. And I just want to just give a special mention. Shout out to Chef Jeff, Vegas's own Chef Jeff. I just want to plug him for a minute because I see what he's doing out there in Altadena, which is a historically Black community who has suffered great loss, not just with death, but in property, and just so many monumental things have been destroyed. So Chef Jeff, he has a nonprofit culinary leadership academy. Again, right out of Las Vegas. he was also incarcerated in the 80s and 90s. He did a 10-year prison sentence. I can't remember exactly what his charges were. I would say they're drug related, but I'm not really sure. But he now helps, people between the ages of 16 to 26 who have been system impacted by the criminal justice system. He uses food as therapy from trauma, childhood trauma. He helps them get jobs, and he's supporting right now he's supporting the incarcerated firefighters and the first responders out there in Altadena. So he's out there cooking up food. He got hot links, all kind of stuff going on. And they showed up with their own money. And now, they have donations. People are donating. So you can go to www.chefjeffproject.org. Again, www.thechefjeffproject.org to donate. And so this is just, acts of kindness, service, and just, he's doing it specifically for the correctional, for those who are incarcerated or incarcerated firefighters and the first responders. Again, 10 years he did and got out, ended up working on the Las Vegas Strip. I remember his story before I even started, learning more about him in the Las Vegas community, because he, on the Oprah Winfrey show back in the day, he talked about how he got employed after his incarceration on the Strip as a top chef. And he's also presenting one of his meals that he created while he was incarcerated to those first responders and incarcerated firefighters, called correctional fried chicken. I don't know how that tastes, but I guess it's good.
Yeah, that sounds
Shout out to Chef Jeff, www.thechefjeffproject.org. And just getting on that subject, I've been reading the book Octavia Butler's. She's a science fiction and Afrofuturism author. If you guys aren't familiar with her, I've been hearing about her a lot, but I finally decided to buckle down and read one of the books, Parable of a Sower. It's one of the Earthsea series. Are you familiar with that, Roblesz? Octavia Butler? Parable of the Sword. They said this particular book, Parable of the Sword, the Earthsea series, pairs well with the 1984 Handmaid's Tale. So I haven't read the series of the Handmaid's Tale, but I watched it, and I'm waiting for part 2. I don't want to read it, but oh my goodness, Handmaid's Tale is so relative to the days and times we live in, and what to expect. So I started reading this book, and it was written in 1993. It's set as a post-apocalyptic Los Angeles. So again, it was written in 1993, but in one of the inserts in the book, it says, February 1st, 2025, we had a fire today. So again, she wrote this book in 1993 talking about Los Angeles fires in 2025 in the month of February. And she was discussing that the small fires that ended up, I haven't got through the entire book, but they proceeded to create large destruction of fires later in the book. So this is narrated by a 15-year-old Black girl who was a PK, or preacher's kid, living in a gated community, sheltered from the surrounding anarchy, suffers from hyper empathy, which is a debilitating sensitivity to other emotions. I kind of have that. Like, I don't like to see blood because I literally feel pain when I see blood, or if somebody says they're feeling away, I literally feel the pain. Like my muscles kind of get this flare up. So I'm like, okay, that is a real thing. People don't understand that. I can't watch gruesome stuff because it really pains me, like physically, literally. But yeah, so she has a hypothermia that she suffers from. But she referenced President Donner, again, written in 1993. I kept hearing Donner because I'm listening to the audio book, but it's really Donner. So it's not Donald. I was like, oh, wait a minute. How's she just going to predict the president too in 2025? But it's actually President Donner. And the book sequel, The Parable of the Talents, this is a part of a secret. She also references Make America Great Again. Mind you, these books were written before y'all incoming president was even considered in this whole presidential realm. So it's very interesting. If you guys haven't read, check out Octavia Butler. It's a really good read. I'm enjoying it so much. But I say all of that to say that she died February of 2006 at the age of 58. And she was buried at Mountain View Cemetery in Altadena, California, which just caught fire, which affected her grave. So it was minimal damage to it. And the famous quote on her tombstone is, all that you touch, you change. All that you change, changes you. So I just think the irony of it, for her to write about this in 1993, and here we are in 2025, it's coming to fruition. And she's literally being affected by the fires after her passing from the cemetery being caught on fire in Altadena, California. So I just wanted to just mention that. I want to get into MLK, but I definitely want to get into our main topic first, and then we'll circle back to MLK because there's a lot I want to talk about for the holiday, and I definitely want to pay my respects to him and celebrate him, because if it wasn't for him, a lot of things that we're doing right now, especially just having this conversation, we wouldn't be able to have. So God bless his family, rest his soul, and we'll circle back on that. But the reason why I brought you here today, Dr. Roblesz, is to have this conversation because it triggered me to see this post, and the post read, what are we teaching our children regarding gender? No, that's our post. What are we teaching our children regarding gender identity? But the post that triggered me is, let's normalize teaching our kids that gay is not normal. So just sinking in on that. What does that mean? What are we saying when we say that? What do you hear when you hear me say that?
So when I hear that, it takes me to a place of the 90s. That's for sure. It takes me to a place where being who you are, regardless of what's going on and your household, and it takes me to a place of just what goes on in your house must be and stay in your house. And although we may be exploring this, you can't say that. And it takes me to a place of silence. And I am now this vocal, rambunctious person that I am now because I did not allow people to silence me.
Okay.
So when I see posts like this, and then when I see posts like, well, we shouldn't teach this in school and we shouldn't do this and all these other good things, I said it earlier in the show, it starts at home. Mm-hmm. It starts at the house. It starts where the child is spending the majority of their day every day. So kids are at home kids are at home the majority of the time. They're only at school 180 days out of a school year. So when you say teaching, who's really teaching this? The parent. I don't know many teachers, and there's always, just like there's good and bad police and there's good and bad firefighters, there's good and bad educators, right?
It's 6 o'clock.
There's not many teachers out here simply saying you should do this or you should do that, or pushing their feelings or their beliefs onto children.
Yeah.
We have 101 other things that we should be doing throughout the day, and that's not one of them. Like
99 problems, but teaching my kids this ain't one.
It's not. Like, we literally have so many other things to concern ourselves about throughout the day that the only time that this may come up in topic, and I mean, again, at the middle school level and at the high school level, I'm not really too well versed with elementary school. I only did 1 year elementary school, and that will be the last year that I do it. We'll teach it from afar, love it, one-on-one, but never something that I'm doing full time. But for the most part, these conversations only come up in PE and health. And that's because the space has been created during that time to have thoughtful conversations. And 9 times out of the 10, the teacher is uncomfortable having a conversation, because depending on who the teacher is, I told this to, and I hope nobody gets offended about what I'm about to say, because somebody sent me a similar article maybe a week before you asked me to do this show.
Really? So it was trending.
Yeah, so it's trending, and it was like this. Essentially, it was like this man brought up this topic, or didn't bring it up. It was brought to the teacher's attention, and I was like, honestly, nowadays with the way society is going, if I was to even touch this topic as a gay man myself, it would be, I'm either pushing my feelings onto a kid, or if the parent didn't know that I was gay, it would be like, oh, now I'm talking to the girls and now I want some sort of reaction out of them. Or it would be, the only person this would probably be acceptable for is an old, crinkly, old white woman, no offense. And she probably wears knee-high stockings and those
rolled up
teacher shoes and one of those cardigans. And that would be the only person that our parents would probably be accepting of having that conversation with the kids. But then you got to think about the generation that the kids are having this conversation with, because you and I, no offense, have a difference of almost an age gap.
Yeah.
Where there's a level of,
I've been living longer than you. Don't be jealous.
Right. I'm not being
jealous.
jealous, but my point is that I have a level of respect for you as an adult, as somebody who is senior to me,
Okay, I
and
respect that.
I'm able to converse with you in a way that, regardless of how I might and differ about our feelings, I know there's just certain lines we're not going to cross, right? With these parents who I am supporting their kids through an education, when I'm in a traditional schoolhouse and I'm in this school setting, these parents are younger than me half the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're yelling at me, they're coming to me with these sort of mindsets that can't be undone in a 10-minute conversation.
Right.
Upset that I'm even considering a sex talk, and by sex I simply mean like health, any of those sorts of conversations, any of that, anything surrounding that, let alone what happened in Florida where they banned it altogether. Like, you just can't talk about it. Like, just don't anything that's gay, like anything of that nature, just don't. Like, if a kid come to you and talk about it, you got to bow out gracefully. And that's disheartening, because why? Because wasn't this the school? And the only reason why it's disheartening is because, like I mentioned earlier in the show, who I am is a product of the public education system that I was able to go through.
Yeah.
And it was because I had teachers of all race, color, creed, sexuality, male and female, that was able to be in my camp, that allowed me to be the educator and the person that I am today. It takes a village to raise a child. Why would you want to dismiss any of these conversations that is going to help be progressive? I know girls, female students that I have had that was more comfortable with having conversations with me about their cycle when it came up. Oh, can I get a pad? Can I get a tampon? Can I get this, that, and the third? Because as a male teacher, I have female students and I have to, or I should, keep these sort of things in my classroom. I had to have this conversation. Like, I had to be aware and cognizant and just be appropriate and developmentally appropriate depending on the students that I was talking to. So obviously middle school students, I'm having a softer conversation. High school students, I may have a little bit more enriching or more in-depth conversation, but it's still honestly the scholar or the student facilitating the conversation. I'm just there as a thought partner. Yeah. I'm not leading it. I'm not steering it. I'm not bringing up topics. I'm not bringing up anything.
Yeah. So are these kids, because this is math, right?
Mm-hmm.
So are they just bringing up certain topics? Do they talk about you personally? Do they ask you questions about your personal life? Or
so kids are kids, right? Kids are always going to ask questions about your personal life. And kids are not stupid. So 9 times out of 10, when kids would ask me certain questions, I would ask them why. How is this effective? What would bring the result? What makes you curious about this? And then the bottom line question comes up. Oh, well, is this safe? Should I do that? Oh, what about this person? Oh, I think I like that person. And then it redirects the conversation to what they're trying to really get to.
Yeah.
But they will probe to see where I am. Now, there's a level of like, I do share certain things with students, but it's not those, like, it's not to that level. Like, there's a professional shareability that I would say. And it's like, I give my students just enough so that they feel comfortable and in a safe space, but you don't need to be in my business. Like, that's where I'm at. But yes, these conversations come up all the time in a school setting, and they shouldn't be shied away from, because that's how kids develop and grow. They didn't go to their mom and their dad for a reason. And I'm not saying we're trying to raise your kids, by no means. Remember, I said that in the beginning. It takes a village, and we're a partner in this. But just like a partnership, auntie, uncle, grandma, grandpa, teacher, mom, like, it is a partnership, and it takes a village, especially when you don't have male figures in certain spaces where other male students, Black, white, Hispanic, Puerto Rican, whoever, if you don't have that male figure in the household, then who else do they go to? And then they end up exploring things on their own.
Yeah.
Which then leads itself to a whole nother set of concerns and health issues that anything that could come up when I could have had a developmentally appropriate conversation with you at 13.
Yeah.
That if you then you experimented at 14, that now a decision that's affecting you for the rest of your life.
Yeah, I agree. And that's across the board, not just with, same-sex relationships, transgender, or whatever it is, however people choose to identify. But even like you said, you have girls coming to you, approaching you about their hygiene, about their reproductive system. A lot of things aren't being talked about at home, and it's important. This is natural. So that's what, it kind of triggers me back to the thought of the conversations that we're having, the kids are approaching you about are natural things, and I look at being gay as a natural thing. And I'll admit that there was a time just growing up, you are affected by other people's perception of people who, identify the way they identify and date who they date, be it same sex or, opposite sex. So you're sometimes you're impression, you get this impression based on what other people think. But then you live long enough, you come to realize, when I reflect back, I had a friend that was like 3, 4, 5, 6 that acted feminine, that was male, that acted a certain way, hung around females. We all, did things that were not necessarily considered male. You know what I'm saying? Like, this kid would get punched in the chest, or they try to beat it out of them, or there's even programs where they try to conform them to be men when they don't identify as that. And so just looking back in retrospect, they had to be born that way, because nobody taught them at 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 to be who they are. And so why can't it be perceived as being normal? I mean, the gay community makes up a small fraction, less than 7% of America, but they are still people. These are people that have made strides to benefit us, all people across the board, no matter how you identify. So, that's what was, to me, just thinking about kids, especially that may feel a certain way about themselves, can't talk to their parents about how they're feeling and are shamed for feeling the way they feel. And then you get a post that says, stop normalizing it. Stop teaching these kids that this is normal. So basically, if your child comes to you and says, I don't like, as a girl, and says, I don't like boys, I like girls, that's what I've always liked, that's what I'm attracted to, I want to dress a certain way because this is what I feel comfortable dressing, which is different from, skirts and pink and whatever, they identify with being a girl. If you have that type of attitude, then what are you saying to your child?
Correct.
And so just bottom line,
supportive of their challenges developmentally and social emotionally as they progress through the world. I'm not saying kids are not aware of who they are and how they identify. What I am saying is that the adults surrounding them will have a direct response and have a direct correlation to how they then perceive themselves in the future as adults. So we always want to be sensitive to the topics as they come up, because it could be a phase for one student or for one kid where it could actually be something that is life-changing and monumental and life-changing for another student. So we always want to be cognizant, which is why I always am supportive of the conversations. And by supportive, like I said, I never am I initiating the conversations with the students, right?
Yeah.
But when the conversation is brought up to me, I always make sure that I'm having the right conversations with them, making sure it's in a safe environment, making sure that they feel safe, and then making the right referrals. Mental health counselor, psychologist, whomever else may need to be looped in, without divulging that scholar's or that student's information or whatever the case may be. And by information, obviously their name and all of that stuff, but I don't need to tell that psychologist or that next person what we talked about. I just need to say, hey, they might need to have a conversation regarding some supportive needs. I think that you might be able to support them in a way that I'm not as a just as a teacher. So just making sure we're having those blended conversations. That's not. I think when parents see you're making my child gay, because I've had that obviously, right? You're making my child gay.
Yeah.
I'm just like, actually, I'm not. Actually, never. I don't even teach your kids, so I have no idea who you're referring to. But it's just the ignorance of it all. It's just, and I think parents think that we're having these wild, outlandish conversations that really aren't taking place.
Yeah, I agree. And I kind of understand, just speaking on behalf of those parents who, I guess we can call it homophobia. I don't know what it is. I mean, on my end, I had a son growing up, great dancer. And I wanted to include him, I'm being candid, y'all, but I wanted to include him in a dance group because he's a good dancer. Whenever I saw talent in him, I wanted to put him in that group so that he could be, developed, And so with the dance group, a lot of the male children seemed a little feminine to me. And I'm being candid when I say that I did not put him in this group because my thought was he's going to be influenced. I don't hate gay people. I think that we all should be treated the exact same. But in my mind, I did not want, just like with anything else, I didn't want my son to be influenced by certain things. I wanted him to just be him. Like in the same way that I wouldn't want my son to hang out with certain kids that was out there wilding out to where he started wilding out. Like if that was who he was and I didn't see that in him, then it probably would have been a different perspective. But looking at him as being a heterosexual male, I didn't want to put him in a position to where he may have been influenced, or like you said yourself, that going through put him in a phase because he's around that environment. Speak to that and help me understand what I'm thinking and saying right now.
I want to say, honestly, it is a lot of 90s. Again, we're not saying anything about your age, right? But it is that. Okay, but it is that generational gap of, well, I don't want to be influenced, right?
Yeah.
I live in Atlanta now, and I want to say I have several heterosexual male friends that have no problem with hanging out in any space that I invite them to.
Yeah.
And they are 100% fine.
Yeah.
Black, male, female, whatever the case may be. But it took an evolution. It took an involvement. Yeah. It took us as a people getting there. Now, today, we are okay with that.
Yeah.
20 years ago, I could see where parents would have that reservation.
Okay.
This is not bird flu, swine flu, or coronavirus, y'all. You cannot sit in a dance classroom and get gay. Like, that's just not how that works. And you don't become experimental or easily, like, it's not a drug either. Like, you don't become, you don't start tasting a drug. I'm born and raised Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn in the 90s.
Okay.
And
Brooklyn, stand up.
Okay. And never had weed. So I knew what it smelled like only because of the surrounding areas.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until later, much later in life, and things started to evolve and become legalized, that I even tried it. And that was it. But that again comes from the household that I was raised in. My mama said, don't do it. I didn't do it.
You was a good listener.
That's all it was. And I had a respect for my mom. She said, don't do it. I trusted her as my guardian, as my parent. Obviously not the words I'm using as a 13, 11-year-old when I see other kids indulging or doing things or whatever. But my mother said, don't do it. I'm good. I don't know why she said don't do it.
You're a good kid and an exception. Okay.
Huh?
I mean, you're a good kid and an exception. Come on. How many kids listen to their parents?
I mean,
some of us were nerds, but a lot of us weren't. We snuck out the windows.
That's fine. And I mean, I did my things as a kid, but it was always, I think my level of sneaky was different than most kids' levels. Like, honestly, I was sneaking candy, and I don't even eat candy like that, but I would have snuck an extra piece of candy or something crazy like that. I'm not saying that I was a perfect kid by no means, but there were certain things that as the head of my household and like being a child, I was taught not to do something.
Yeah.
Then I shouldn't do it. I knew that there could be potential consequences of that. I didn't know what those consequences were. I also didn't want to find out. As adults,
disappoint your parents, maybe.
And didn't want to disappoint my parents, right? So as an adult, we are responsible for creating that fear in our children, not being their friends. I think the disconnect now is a lot of these parents want to be more friendly than parental. And that's the problem where we come into play, because then now you want to be friendly and your child's friend, leaving the parental components to the teaching and the educators.
Yeah.
But then you get upset with us when we cross a certain line, have a certain conversation, don't want us to do certain things. Oh, that's my child. And how dare you? And how did you even think about having that conversation? But you didn't. You didn't have the conversation. And then they came to me with this outlandish thing. Now I have to bring it to your attention. Now you cussing me out because they didn't say something. All I did was live. All I did was show up to work today.
It's a reality. It's part of life, what you're talking about. It's not like y'all just making up stuff. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to Demi. Thank you for getting in the chat, watching live on YouTube. She said she loves the dialogue, and I love you for being here with us today. Thank you. So we're saying this is normal, right? We're saying that having this conversation.
It's 100% normal to have the conversation, and the conversation should be that of what it is. It should be until that kid is at a certain level of whatever growth or development they are in. It should be developmentally appropriate. So what is gay? Third grader asks that conversation. Oh, gay means happy. They don't know what sexuality means. They have an idea, but then honestly, if your kid knows at third grade sexuality and like all of the nuances and like men kissing men and girls kissing girls and all of that other good stuff, and they know all the overly sexualized stuff, what you doing at home?
Right.
What does your kid have access to that then allows them to have those overly stimulated sexual conversations at third grade?
Right.
So if I'm at a third grader having this conversation with me, oh, what is gay? Oh, gay means happy. It means that you're ecstatic, that you're elated about something, right? Now, middle school, I'm gonna have a different conversation. I'm gonna be like, what you mean? What do you
y'all
mean?
Graduated from that.
Yeah. So what do you mean by what is gay? And 9 times out of 10, you also have to be mindful that middle schoolers are goofballs. Like, they literally are. So they might only be asking the question because they're curious to know what my response is gonna be.
Yeah, so they can giggle.
Not more. They could probably care less what gay really is. They just want to know how I'm gonna respond and be like, "Ooh, Dr. Roblesz said da 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 da." Nah. And then graduating late middle school, early high school is when you start to have those really gender norming, gender specific identity sort of conversations. Like, oh, what you thinking? Okay, cool. I hear what you're saying. I respect that perspective. What other thoughts have you given to that?
Yeah.
Like, and again, you're having conversation with them. You're having the dialogue, but you're not shaping their opinion. Like, I don't tell kids who I vote for. I don't tell kids what party or political party I'm affiliated with. Now they may know, but you never heard it leave my mouth.
Yeah.
You may know, but you know that I'm not going to our incoming clown circus inauguration is me saying that I'm not in support of that president.
Yeah.
But it is not me saying I'm a Republican or a Democrat.
Yeah.
Kids don't know that which party I'm affiliated with. It's none of their business. My job is to inform your instruction. My job is to inform your identity, not for me to impress upon my identity onto you.
Yeah. Listen, I hear you. You know, just following up on that conversation again, this post, the actual author gave his rationalization because, of course, he had pushback. Some people in agreement with his statement, and other people not so much in agreement. And his pushback was, you know, responding to some of the people. He said, I understand your point of view. He said, but going against the natural course of procreation can stifle life itself. I believe there's an agenda behind normalizing being gay, and that's why it's not being promoted, but supported as well. Not only being promoted, but supported as well. People can still be creative and express their individuality without this type of influence. How can anyone truly be themselves in quotation marks when the majority of what is being taught and shown is going against the true nature of being who you were born to be? That's a lot.
Mhm.
But how do you respond to that?
That's a mouthful.
Yeah.
But again, this author is subscribed to one, is I'm sure trying to preach a certain dialogue or subscribing to one sort of preference. As an educator, as somebody who has to be objective about everything that I do and how I do it,
Yeah.
it's none of my business what goes on outside of the classroom as it pertains to my students without my heart being into it. What I'm trying to say is that we can have conversations, we can respect um heterosexual relationships equally as much as we can respect homosexual relationships.
Yeah.
Same gender loving, opposite gender loving. I used to say all the time, and I used to teach ninth graders. I was in a 612 building. I would say good morning, good afternoon, greetings, salutations, ladies and gentlemen, or whatever else you self-identify as. And it wasn't because
Somebody got mad at you. One of them parents was mad about that part, the last part.
I'm sure they were. But when you have kids that sit up there and tell you, listen, I want to identify as a desk today.
Yeah.
I want to identify as a bus today. I want to identify as
How do you
whatever.
deal with that? Do you call them bus and desk, or you just
I'm like, okay, I need your body to be somewhere. And again, that goes into that I'm trained as an educator to, and I'm not saying that this is classroom management. I just been around the block a long time. I started teaching for quite some time. There's certain things that students do at this stage in the game that's just ain't gonna bother me, right?
Yeah,
if you want to be a lamp today and a bus tomorrow, by all means, be a lamp today and your bus tomorrow. But I need that
remote to find your lost remote.
Okay, like whatever you need to do. I just know that my homework and my classwork are going to be turned in by the end of this period. I don't care if it needs to be illuminated onto this paper or whether it needs to come out of a parking lot. I don't care how you do it, just get it done. Because at the end of the day, I got to put a grade in. And I got to put a grade in for the bus, the lamp, and the desk, whoever else you want to identify as. I need to put a grade in.
Yeah.
And there's kids that would put certain nicknames on their papers and things of that nature. I just took it all in light heart. It's not my job to change your mind. Yeah. It's my job to be supportive to whatever you got going on. It's my job as an educator to create a safe space for you to be able to learn. It is my job as an educator to love and support my students and to push them beyond academic measures that nobody else has pushed them before. That's my job. So how I do my job, whether it's because you are a bus and I am the roadway, or I am Benjamin Franklin and the electrician, this is how we're going to do it. This is the vessel. By all means, just get me to work.
I just love your approach because I've thrown a lot of things at you. I've thrown some bait at you, and you haven't really went for it. You stayed on the topic of education, just making, like you said, a safe space, giving people information, providing resources. You didn't get into the back and forth about what, the procreation and why, it's important that we stop talking about gay because the population is decreasing and It isn't normal. You stuck to the facts.
Because the data doesn't support that. The data
Yeah.
doesn't, like you said, only 7% of United States Americans identify in some way in one of the LGBTQA plus letters, right?
Yeah.
And even then,
Mhm.
of those numbers, several of them, including myself, will have kids or want kids to some degree.
Yeah.
So, and then let's talk about, and you know what, let's not talk about it. But then there are ways for LGBT community to adopt children and support those families that are not willing or able or financial means or any of those things. So I only talk about facts and data.
Right.
And there's so much to dissect around all of that. But let's just be clear, heterosexual people are not procreating, and therefore children are still happening. And let's just be clear, they're happening more and more often than not. And there's a lot more, and I don't want to say, please don't take this out of context, y'all. I'm just saying it in the words of that I can describe it. There's a lot more oopsie babies happening over and over and over again that will allow for this generation and for procreation to continue on than not. We are not out here just this generation, this era, people are having babies and people are having, like, it's not happening, especially with the more and more resources. And this is not the conversation, but like drugs like PrEP and DoxyPep and like all of those things, people are having more unprotected sex than they generally would because of all of these now barriers in place and less
from disease and whatnot.
Exactly. So before, where we were having protected sex to ensure that we were not procreating, but then also protecting ourselves against sexually transmitted diseases. Now you have all of these drugs in place that allow for all of these other, allow for you to feel more comfortable having unprotected sex.
Yeah.
And then more women are coming off of birth control because then there's things tied to health factors tied into birth control and not and I'm not a woman by any means or a stretch of the imagination. So correct me if I'm wrong, but there's to the cycle and like their health concerns, and there's other, like, it's leading to cancer, or in certain Black women, the birth control over a long period of time leads to other side effects and health conditions later on. So there's so many other things that we should be focused on around this topic that what a kid identifies as, making sure that kids have the proper contraceptives and protection in schools and not taking that out and not getting sick in high school because we no longer are able to hand out condoms, or they're getting sexually transmitted diseases because we can't have the conversation. That's been on the rise, but nobody is talking about that. Like, we need to be more intentional about the topic if we're going to talk about it.
Yeah, and I like to quote something that the late great Joe Madison would say, is that a lot of times we maximize a minimum and minimize a maximum. And like I said, we talked about the percentage. Even worldly, 8% of the world identifies as being gay or homosexual. Like 8% of the world. So to me, this is a minimum that is being maximized by some people. And I opened up starting out, with my rant, as I do on each show here on In Your Ear Radio, just saying that I think a lot of people who have this, in their brain, and they're feeling some type of way and feel the need to post and talk about it. Maybe we have some unresolved issues and insecurities about their own identity, which is okay. But I don't think that you need to disparage another group of people, because the suicide rate is very high amongst our young adult gay, the youth, because people are telling them, the church is telling them, you're only good in the church if you're in a choir, or, you're paying your tithes. But we definitely not going to talk about your relation and being homosexuality is not just about sex. People associate this so much with sex, but if we want to talk about procreation, more same-sex couples are 7 times more likely than opposite-sex couples to have adopted children. So they're adopting more kids. We got IVF. People are going to their friends and peers and making babies. Shout out to the Brat and Big Booty Judy. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't say that we're not, that there's this group of people that they're not having babies. You know what I'm saying? Because they're finding a way to still have a family outside of, not being able to make it together as same sex. So, if that's your argument, you're concerned about the world population. How many kids have you adopted? How many kids do you have from foster care? Like, what are you doing to make this world better besides wagging your finger at people who may choose to live that way, or who obviously that's just who they are. That's the way they were born. And how is this affecting you? How is what they're eating making you shit? At the end of the day, that's how I look at it.
Correct.
And so, but like you said, dealing with the statistics, again, the gay community is more prone to adopt these children who are in this foster care system. So if that's your argument, how does that ride? It's just so much to it that needs to be debunked, because a lot of people are having these fear factor conversations. And like I said, I had you called it my, I guess, the OG 90s perspective versus what's this, the Gen Z perspective? You're not Gen Z, are you?
I was born in 92, so I'm not exactly sure when the cutoff was.
You're a millennial, right? I'm Generation X.
So I'm a millennial, and then I think my little brother would be considered Gen Z.
Yeah.
Like younger siblings.
I know that I've come a long way, but that's been just with understanding, just actually doing the knowledge and having conversations with people, even people in my family.
And
that
I'm a Bible, like I went to church, been in church my whole life. And one of the things that we learned in church was that people are destroyed for the lack of knowledge. Like,
perish for the lack of knowledge.
Yes.
That's what the country is trying to do to us now. They want us to be dead. They do not want us to be woke. They want to bury us. And you're frozen again. They want to bury us. You back. As far as knowledge, information, they don't want us to know the truth, because if we know what's real, then they can't control us. And they are very, very, very stuck on controlling us. So I just think, to put something like that out there, you may have someone in your family, it could be your own child, while you're wagging your finger and telling this person that it's not normal. It may be for them. And if it's not, just self-reflect and really just ask yourself, how is this really affecting your day-to-day life, that this person is choosing a same-sex relationship? Like, how is it affecting you personally?
Correct. And I think that people should be more cognizant. And like you said, maximizing the minimum and minimizing the maximum. Just be more cognizant of what we're focusing on. Let's support our children in whatever journey and stage of life that they're in, so that they're in a safe and comfortable environment, that they can have these conversations with you respectfully, and literally train up a child in the way they should go. Support them through their journey, so that they're making appropriate decision-making skills. Mm-hmm. So when they are out in the world on their own, they make decisions that is going to be, that they know the consequences to. Yeah. That's all I got. It should be very much that simple. Help children make decisions and make sure that they're aware of the consequences of pro and cons of every decision that they make.
Yeah, shout out to E40. Everybody got choices. And I love your approach. I love it, because you're basically saying, listen, whatever you got going on, let me just tell you what it is, so you can make an informed decision. You're not telling them, do this or do that. You're not throwing the Bible at them, or whatever your beliefs may be. You basically just giving them information and pointing them to people who can be beneficial to guiding them to help better understand whatever it is they're trying to understand. Mm-hmm. I love how you spun this. I thought this conversation was going to be basically, listen, ain't nothing wrong with being gay, and just basically protesting and just going in to support of gay. And like I said, there's nothing wrong with it, but I like your approach overall when it comes to our kids, where we're not coming at them in a way that they are going to shut down.
Correct. We all know that just from parents and one-on-one, right? We tell our girls not to go and date the guy, and what do? Date the guy. We tell our boys, don't go out after a certain time to be home by the street lights. What happened? They're rolling in the house at 1:00. But if we have the conversation and we say, listen, nothing good happens after this time,
Yeah, nothing good happens after midnight, children.
Yeah, nothing nothing good happens after midnight. Only thing open after midnight is 7-Eleven and Legs.
In Vegas, everything open, so you can't use it.
I mean, I was born and raised in New York City, so everything was open and going too in the 90s. New York is a little different now. It closes a little earlier, but the point is that if we're informing them of like making better choices,
Yeah,
telling them, and this doesn't work for all kids, but it works for 98% of them, right?
yeah.
These are your choices. Your choices to be home by 11 o'clock or to be home by 1 o'clock. But
Yeah.
if you come in at 1 o'clock, that's a couple hours less of sleep you got. You still got this to do in the morning. You still got to be active here. You got to do this. You got to do that. The whole 9 yards. The reason why our students go to college and crash out is because we didn't create these boundaries for them.
I like that. I love that perspective. I love that conversation to have. Because
Mm-hmm.
we could easily say, because it's my house and I want all the lights off and my alarm is on and I need you to come in. You know what I'm saying? But outside of that, the whole reason why we want our kids in at a certain time is, like we said, nothing good happens after midnight. And you're not going to be prepared for the next day, mentally, physically, emotionally.
Correct.
Because you've been doing too much and you don't have enough hours, to recharge your battery. So I love that perspective. I think that's definitely a better way to raise kids, not to have them fearful of having a conversation with you or talking about things that are meaningful to them. So I just appreciate your perspective on that. Times are changing. I did some research on it. I know you talked about the Generation Z, and it said that as far as perspectives changing as to how we approach, the LGBTQIA community and our perspective on it. Like I said, I've evolved in my understanding, with information, knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, right? So it is estimated that the younger generations are more likely to be open about their sexuality within Generation Z, being the most likely to be openly gay, bisexual, or asexual, or pansexual.
Mm-hmm.
Millennials are the next most likely to be openly gay, and baby boomers are the least likely to report identity or be openly gay. So these age groups of the millennials and the Generation Z are the age group between the ages of 23 and 38. So yeah, it does make a sense. But the survey was conducted by it was said that 7.2% of respondents identified themselves as part of the LGBT community. Like I said, it's close to 8%, right? And so over the decades, studies have shown that American society has grown more welcoming and accepting to members of the community. However, discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity is still a serious concern in the United States. In 2001, 50% of respondents stated they believe gay or lesbian relations to be morally wrong. But in 2022, this number has fallen by 25%. So to 25%. So, it's education, right? It's education. Yeah. We all got to live in this world. And just thinking about all the people who have been influential that, identify as gay or of the LGBT community, we benefited from them existing. So why are we mad about them? You know what I'm saying? Being here, like, why are we trying to shun them or make them feel ashamed of who they are or not get the same protections and respect that we're fighting for as Black people and people of color and so-called minorities? Correct. You know what I mean? But again, I just really love your perspective on that. What is it that you want people, just to take away on this conversation? What is it that you want people to understand about, the LGBT community?
That's a multifaceted question.
Okay.
What I would love for people to understand and respect about the LGBT community, especially within like the Black and brown household, and then within the lower end of the socioeconomic status.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna give this short, long conversation that I had with a student. And this also shows that perspective, right? So one of my students, they were in the 9th grade. First name, ironically, name was Christopher. I'll leave his last name out for security and safety.
So Roblesz' first name is Christopher, y'all.
Yes. He comes to me and he says, "Hey, Mr. Roblesz, so at lunchtime they was talking about you." And again, Black male student, gotta defend your name. Like they saying at lunchtime, they was like, "Oh, they was saying you was gay, you was da 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 da." And it was like, "You not gonna step to them, you not gonna." I said, "What is it to me?"
Right.
Like I'm having this conversation with him, and he was like, "Well, are you?" And I said, well, what difference does it make if I was or wasn't? Again, I don't really never answer the question.
I
I
love
allow
that.
them to draw the conclusion on their own.
Because it creates critical thinking. Because now you just asked them, what difference does it make? So now you got to think about how you just came at me and what was your whole point.
Correct. So then the end of it, I finally did cave. I was like, I don't care what people say or do about me, especially if it's the facts. Like if somebody said your mama was fat and your mama weighed 300 pounds, why do you care? Like,
what's the
so
point?
if you're saying that I'm gay during lunchtime and you're cackling about it, okay, what's your point?
Yeah.
I didn't understand. And he was like, and this is the takeaway. This is the point of the story. He was like, oh wow, that's crazy. Cause like all the gay people that I see are like voguing in the street and they just wilding and hanging. And like, I didn't know that they had like jobs and like all this other good stuff. Right. Like this is like a phenomenon to him. And later on that I got to meet like mom and dad and all that other good stuff. It was a phenomenon to the family. They were just like, oh my, like you don't give that. Like you don't give like
Dr. Roblesz. You don't give Dr. Roblesz.
Like they didn't, they was like, this is crazy to me. So what I want people to take away is that the LGBT community is so much more than what just the media portrays it to be sometimes. Yeah. Sometimes I honestly don't feel represented by what the mass media produces. I just don't. And that's just in general. So when we're talking about taking away gender identity in conversations, and we're talking about censorizing the conversations that we have in a classroom, what we're allowed to say as educators and all of that stuff, I want parents and everybody as a whole to think about what does censorizing all of that do? Because when students cannot become what they cannot see. And I learned that at the BMAC conference, which is the Black Male Educator Conference 2024. I was a speaker there, but then I also had the privilege of listening in on some other people speak as well. And when somebody said that from that podium, I was like, wow, because students cannot become a Black male educator or anybody of color or anything in society if they don't see it firsthand, if they don't have pre-exposure to it. Agreed. Now, I know what people are saying is like, oh, well, if they see a gay man or a lesbian woman, oh, now that's not how that works, y'all. I'm talking about having appropriate conversations, being able to have safe conversations, being able to talk about things so that way students don't, one, go out and explore things that's detrimental to their health, their lifestyle, or anything of that nature, but then also pre-exposing and having access to information so that they can make informed decisions about who they want to become. Let's not censorize what's going on, because had that student not seen me as a grown individual just living in society, normal Black male that happens to be gay, same gender loving,
doctor,
right, all of these things, what would he then have portrayed? What sort of connotation would he have continued to have this like, oh, I hate gay people? Would he have continued to have this like, oh, gay is bad? What if he never met and seen me when he has a kid now, because he is respectfully heterosexual, right? Mm-hmm. Has a kid, and that kid happened to have identified outside of the traditional inner norms. How would he then react to that? So it's all about exposure and creating appropriate conversations with our students that allows them to have these safe and productive conversations, because I do think that conversation will never leave my head. It was one of those conversations that was imprinted and like ironed into my skull for the rest of my life. I was just like, wow. I didn't think that you, because as me, like, I mean, you've known me for quite some time now, and just knowing my mannerism, like who I am, and like all that other good jazz, I just wouldn't think people were still questioning it at this point. Like it is what it is. But when you do meet a certain set of people or certain people from different areas, it's so far-fetched out of their brain that unless you are portrayed as a certain way, they don't see it as as that, and they just think, oh, he's just sassy or feminine or just whatever the
Yeah.
case may be. So that's my take. That's what I would love people to take away.
I love that. I really love that. I'm so glad we had this conversation because you definitely gave a perspective. I don't think I was really prepared to that it was going to go this way. I thought it was going to be a lot of like, just being on the defense. You know what I'm saying? And you just brought so much resolve and just understanding and a lot of teachable points. For people who are listening to this is an opportunity. You can play it back and just know how to have this conversation with your kids. Like, don't shut the door. This is what it is. It's here. You can't just act like it doesn't exist, but there's a way to approach the conversation to make your child, especially if you want them to come to you first, not to their teacher or to their friends or to their peers or just random people. You want them to come to you, be an open door and let them, not judge them when they come to you. And just the way that you just presented the questions. I always say that too. And just an example of that, somebody taught me this years ago. When asking a question, like when somebody asks you a question, you don't necessarily want to answer, you're just curious while they're asking, like, so what do you do? When somebody asks you, you're sitting on an airplane and somebody next to you wants to have small talk. So what do you do? I'm very personal. I'm not a real estate agent. I'm not really trying to promote myself in that respect.
Yeah.
So I don't care to tell you what I do in my personal life is for work. And so one of the recommendations was to ask that person, why do you ask? And I thought that was just so like brilliant. You know what I'm saying? And that's what you're saying here. Like when they come at you about your personal life, you ask them, why are you asking me this? Because it's thought provoking and it causes them to have a critical thought process because they ask themselves, why am I asking this? And I think it's brilliant. I think it's so brilliant because it puts it on its back on them to say, why did I ask that question? Was it ignorant? Am I being childish? Or do I really want to know? And then it's like an open book because now if you really are curious, you start to learn more about the question that you ask, not necessarily the person, but the subject matter that you presented to that person. So I just respect that so much. I really love the way that this flowed, just giving the parents, giving other people who are approached just a perspective on how to have this conversation with our youth, not to shut the door, but to find a way to have this conversation and allow them to have a critical thought process when they're having this conversation. It's so beautiful.
And it's important to note that you never are shutting the door. It's a revolving door. So it's going to close or appear closed, but it's going to circle back. And sometimes when it circle backs with twice the questions, twice the curiosity, twice the everything. So why not just address it the first time it comes around?
Yeah.
Because this way, when students are having these conversations or kids are having these conversations, it's by the time it circle back around, because it will come back up in conversation.
Yeah.
Now the conversation is a little bit more deeper. It's a little bit more like more than just curiosity, more than acting out, more than a phase, more than a whatever it may be. And now it's going to be something that can help redirect this kid to make a positive choice, regardless of what that choice may be.
Agreed. So before we just close out, just celebrating the late, great Dr. Martin Luther King, who I feel like made it possible for us to be in the position we are today. I'm so grateful for him. Is there anything else you want to close out with on this conversation as we are teaching our children? What are we teaching our children regarding gender identity?
No, I think we hit it all. I appreciate the conversation. I'm happy to have shed some perspective.
Yeah, I love it.
Yes.
Like I learned a lot. I'm honest. Honestly, I just love the way you approached it. And I appreciate that. I appreciate that so much. You guys also don't forget that you can go to Dr. Roblesz. He's a tutor at Math and More. Go to Math and More. If you want your kids to, like I said, the fees are very reasonable to get your kids abreast with math, and I've watched the videos of him explaining it. And like I said, I've already told myself that I'm not a math girl, but he just told me I am. So now I'm feeling myself. So you can't tell me nothing.
And so what Miss Latoya is referring to is the What's the Answer Wednesdays, where you all can submit a question and I solve it live live-ish. I solve the problem out and post it on our social media pages. So it's all on our LinkedIn. Our social media handle is Math and More, Math, the letter N, More. And there's a link in our bio where you can submit any math questions that you are curious about.
And like I said, that one equation, it made so much sense to me. And I was like, oh, if he would have been my teacher, you know what I'm saying? So that's what's up. But before we close out, I definitely want to pay my respects to the late, great Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who passed away, during this month. His actual date of death was January 15th. I'm sorry, that was he was born April 4th. I'm sorry, 1968 is his date of death after his profound speech he gave in Memphis, Tennessee. 7:05 p.m. at the age of 39, he took his last breath, being shot and killed at a motel, again, Lorraine Motel in Memphis, Tennessee. And he was present there in support of the poor people, the sanitation workers that were on strike. There were like 1,300 of those people. And so he went there in support of them, and he will succumb to his death. The sad way, it's just hard. The point, thinking about Dr. Martin Luther King, because a lot of people, it's just cliche when we talk about him. Like we talk about the "I Have a Dream" speech, we talk about the things that he did, but I don't think people really take into the fact of what difference, along with all the others who supported this movement, because he was just the face of the movement, right? What difference this has made in our lives today. Like we cannot stray away from that. And that's why I get frustrated with people who are eligible to vote, who that don't vote, or who say this political system is, it's rigged, or, we know it's tainted. There's some negativity there. People are, not playing by the rules. Of course, they got tricks and things involved, but a lot has changed. He got a Republican, a person who was a stout racist, to sign the Civil Rights Bill. The president at that time, Lyndon B. Johnson, to sign the Civil Rights Act. And I just, don't want us to forget that. And I don't want us to play that down, because that is why we are where we are today. We still have a long way to go, but thank God for people like him and in that movement. Behind the scenes, a lot of people who were in the entertainment business funded these things. And one of the things people don't realize about that movement back then, because people say we need leaders like him, we need a face. We're not going to have that anymore. That's not what it is now. Just like we talked about the evolution of understanding the culture of different lifestyles, the evolution of protesting is different too. Back then, they actually put people in positions and trained them, spat in their face and hit them, and trained them to go sit at these bars in restaurants to be able to withstand that type of treatment. And we don't have those type of things going on right now, as far as being able to be prepared for what's to come, being hosed down and bitten by dogs and things of that nature. It's a different element. There's a different evolution to that. But yet and still, we're still here fighting. Every day we're hearing about the injustice, where people are being killed by police unjustly, and just all the things that are happening. I mean, there's so much we could talk about in little time, so I won't keep you too long, but I just want you guys to remember how influential and how important the fact that he was born and he existed, what it means, having this holiday, what it means to just reflect. Like, this is a time where we should be, supporting Black businesses. We should be finding ways to, we got to jump ship. When we think about Twitter, when we think about Instagram, when we think about Facebook, all of these things, they're bound down, they're kissing a ring to the incoming president, to where we have no protections. And a lot of these journalists are being affected. Freedom of speech is not free anymore. And these are the things that, activists fought for, including the late, great Dr. Martin Luther King. These are a lot of things that are falling by the wayside. We are really going backwards. A lot of people think we're going forward, but y'all need to start watching some of these sci-fi movies. We don't go forward. We go backwards. We go back, all the way back. You know what I'm saying? And so you guys have to be prepared for that and support those people who support you. There's a lot of companies that don't support you. They don't support DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. They don't support hiring qualified people who don't look like them, being white, in positions of, whatever, just having employment. I think back to this poor people's movement when he was fighting for the sanitation workers, where he was succumbed to his death the next day. There was one particular sanitation worker who spoke to the fact that he kind of ignited this because he was tired of getting paid these black men were getting 65 cents to $1 something an hour to work. The white men were allowed to shower after working sanitation jobs. The black men were not provided showers. They didn't have a place to eat. They couldn't go into restaurants. They sat on the back of them nasty ass trucks and ate their lunch. And I'm sure their wives prepared for them for their long day of work. You know what I mean? So they were being discriminated against. A lot of these men, even going into the war and coming back as veterans, couldn't even get jobs after fighting for this country. Like so many things, all the discrimination, the Civil Rights Act helped to protect them. Now we know and understand, based on the statistics, that white women benefited more from the Civil Rights Act than others. Asians too are at the top of that list, and they're feeling the effects now, entering into these colleges where a lot of people are being omitted because they don't have to have a certain percentage of non-whites in these jobs or in these institutions. And so this was all brought about, this movement through the Civil Rights Act that Dr. Martin Luther King was able to spearhead. And I'm just so grateful for his existence. And I just want to celebrate his life forever. There's so many things I can say about that. But again, I'm just thinking about the sanitation workers. They did get some type of benefit, like $70,000 back in 2017, because they even opted out of the pension, not trusting the pension program, and only got Social Security. This one gentleman that I'm speaking about, trying to remember his name, but he's 85, and in 2017 he was still working. I don't know if it was by choice or force, but that he chose to still do that, work for that sanitation company during the time. But Dr. Martin Luther King was so significant and so important, and he should not be forgotten. We're not going to have this argument about turn the other cheek. He did what he had to do in order to get us to where we are today. And I need us to embrace that. Even though this celebration of his life falls on Monday, which is the same day that we are also going to be welcoming in a new regime, y'all's president. Weird. Shout out to the last living child, I think there is. She's the last one, Bernice King, the daughter of Martin Luther King and Coretta Scott King. She, spoke to this, saying we must pay attention to what the president-elect speaks on that day. So she's not mad about it. She said this is an opportunity to pay attention to what this president-elect speaks on that day. And she said, I'm glad it occurred on this day because it gives us the United States of America and the world the contrasting pictures. So pay attention, you guys, when you're looking at this inauguration, hearing what he has to say. This y'all's president that's coming in has yet to send any type of thoughts and prayers and condolences or any form of empathy to the people in California who are suffered from those fires. All he's done is wag his fingers at leadership. Like, you don't care about the humans, y'all got to pay attention. But, and just thinking about the conversation at hand when we're talking about the LGBTQ community, even then, there was an issue with the stigma behind people
7 o'clock.
having their personal life, right? So Bayard, if y'all not familiar with him, Bayard Rustin, he was the right-hand man of Dr. Martin Luther King. He was an activist who helped Dr. Martin Luther King in a lot of his advocacy. So although he did not explicitly, come forward with, just speaking about or LGBTQ, he was openly
support.
He was open about his, his stance.
Mm-hmm.
What word am I looking for?
So I was saying he was open about his support.
Okay. So Bayard Rustin, he was a part of King's inner circle as a civil rights movement grew in the 1950s, but others were concerned about his liability. Tensions came to head and the worst fears of civil rights activists were realized in the 1960 Democratic Convention. So Randolph King, Rustin begun arrangements to march at the Democratic National Convention of the presidential candidate, John F. Kennedy, and his running mate, Lyndon B. Johnson. So in Los Angeles, the protesting the partners' lackluster position of civil rights in response to the Democratic leadership, they, sent the Black Congressman Adam Clayton Powell, y'all know who he is, Adam Clayton Powell, to stop the march before it happened. And they used Rustin's sexual orientation as a weapon. So prior to the convention, Powell sent an intermediary to threaten King, telling him that if he proceeded with this march, protesting, during the civil rights movement of the 1950s, that if he proceeded with this march, he would accuse King of having an affair with Rustin, not only killing the march, but also dealing with the possibly fatal blow to the movement as a whole. So this has been a stigma since the beginning of time. But here was a man who helped spearhead this civil rights movement that we benefit from today. He didn't get to live to reap the benefits of this. A lot of those who fought didn't live to reap the benefits, but here we are. Here we are, the descendants. You know what I'm saying? We're benefited. The Bayard Rustin's partner spoke on behalf of that, because Dr. King did step away after this was, after that threat went out, he did step away with association with Bayard, and they both agreed that maybe, the movement was more important than being affiliated. It's kind of like when Barack Obama, remember the the preacher, what was his name? But they disassociated him, Barack Obama, what was his name? Oh, it doesn't, but he's a renowned preacher, but he spoke, about Black empowerment, and he even talked about, the Muslim culture, but Barack had to disassociate himself during his presidential, why can't his name come to me? During his presidential campaign, because people were like, nah, he's too Black. You know what I'm saying? He was too Black. But anyways, but the partner of Bayard Rustin, after Dr. Martin Luther King stepped away from Bayard Rustin, who had helped him with this advocacy during the civil rights movement, he said it personally was a painful situation for him. He thinks because he was disappointed that Dr. King didn't stand up for him or didn't have more backbone. But he also said, his name was Walter Nagel. He said, he said, in all fairness to Dr. King and to Bayard understood that this was a political move, and it was probably better for King to do what he did politically speaking in terms of the movement and response to power's threat. They came back. They fought fire with fire. And again, when power threatened him, King did go ahead and proceeded with the protest in the 1960 Democratic Convention. So much happened. His life, he lost his life. And again, the sanitation worker, he went on to say that, he was happy that Dr. Martin Luther King came to represent them, but he was sad that this man lost his life, fighting for him. And, some of the other things we don't know, during the civil rights movement, Chinese benefited more too than most people would know. Jeremiah Wright, thank you. Jeremiah Wright, that was his name, the preacher. Yeah. So yeah, he was just really considered radical, and President Barack Obama had to disassociate himself from Jeremiah Wright during his campaign because they didn't like the way Jeremiah Wright was talking. He was talking sense. But anyway, we know how it goes. But just to know that Black people are the only people who benefited. So when we are celebrating the Dr. Martin Luther King birthday and this holiday on Monday, and those of us throughout the weekend, everybody, white women especially, the Asian community especially, and of course us Black people, should be celebrating, turning all the way up for all the advantages that we've had because of the civil rights movement, and this man risking his life and succumbing to his death to fight for freedom, justice, and equality for all people, and especially those of the Black people. But just to give you a little, I was listening to her interview, Gene Wu, before we close out. He's a Texas representative of the House since 2012. Mm-hmm. You know about him? You heard about the story?
I think I know where you're going. Say it again.
With it. I got to go back and listen again, but he brought some perspective to, the Chinese here and the discrimination. He talks about how a lot of us may know that there was a point that only Chinese men were allowed into the country, and they were, cornered to do just domestic work, which was considered women's work, which is the nastiest of work that they did. The women, again, weren't allowed. The Chinese weren't able to purchase property until 1965. Does that ring a bell? After the Civil Rights Act took effect?
Yes.
How did they benefit, right? So he spoke to that. And he said that also, when you even have the conversation about why are there so many Chinese businesses in our Black communities, it was because of discrimination. Chinese people, immigrants, could not get loans from these white banks. So they had to save up their money and use their little dollars to purchase lower priced properties, which happen to be where? In the Black community. Yeah. You see what I'm saying? So even Asian karate movies, he spoke to that again. His name was Gene Wu. He's a Texas House of Representative. And again, I listened to him on a Karen Hunter show this Thursday. So he even spoke to how karate movies, because we know that, shout out to my sweetie, he loved a good karate movie. And my auntie, they got that in common. They love the people that be moving their lips and then they don't be matching up. They like that. But Asian movies were so popular when you think about the Wu-Tang Clan and things of that nature. Asian movies were so popular within the Black community because these Asian communities could not get white people to play their movies in white theaters. So they had to go to the Black community. And herein lies the issue. Asians and Blacks have had issues. We go back to the Rodney King era, just all of the things, even to this day. Like they've come into our communities and benefited. So I think we should get more respect. I think they should put some respect on our name because when the white people said no, we said yes. And we let them come in, and we know how we get treated, across the board. So, we Black people aren't the only people who benefit from civil rights. The majority of people who benefited from civil rights, again, are white women and the Asian community, and of course us. So we need to all be celebrating Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And I'm just so grateful for his life. I thank his mother and father for having a great night and producing him. Okay.
Yeah. When Dr. Martin Luther King had his dream, literally, it wasn't just to benefit Black people. It was supposed to benefit all
Amen.
people. And unlike when the Constitution was founded, where it says all men are created equal, Dr. Martin Luther King truly meant what he said. By he wanted all men, colored, different stripes, backgrounds. He wanted us all to be in unity. And that is my goal, to be able to strive to be in that sort of realm, regardless of who I'm supporting, who I am helping, regardless of background, race, color, creed. I'm helping you achieve your goal. And I think that should be everybody's mission and vision in life. Like, how can I help you regardless of who you are?
Yes. And at the end of the day, there's more of us than them, you guys. So we need to come together and stop allowing their tricks to poison us. We need to come together and stop allowing them to divide us with race and class, things that are non-factors. We all want the same things. We want our children to be safe in school. We want the American dream. We want, the pursuit of just having a home, having healthcare, affordable healthcare, good, well-paying jobs, livable wages. We all want the same things. We're no different. So stop treating us differently. If you really love people and you know that we have the same interests, don't separate us based on the divide of what other people say that are hateful. Racism is a selfish attitude. It's a very selfish attitude. Shout out to LaShawn for, I think she was reverting back to the conversation we were having about just talking to your kids about, educating them on, just gender identity. So thank you for watching and chatting in the chat. Thank you so much on YouTube. All right, so we're gonna get up out of here.
Yes.
And I sure appreciate you. This was a great conversation. I appreciate so much. And I just want to close out with one last thing. You want to say anything before we close out again?
I appreciate you. Thank you for having me as a longtime guest and friend.
Yeah. Yes, family. Yes, family. So I want to close out with a quote again that I mentioned earlier from the late, great Octavia Butler, author, who said that all that you touch, you change. All that you change changes you. I hope that you guys enjoy the rest of your Saturday and the rest of your day whenever you happen to be watching this. I thank you so much. Love you. And I'll see you next week, you guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye. Oh, wait a minute. I forgot one thing before I do. I got to give my shout out to the people in the chat. I got to do this. I can't. Can't leave without giving y'all applause. What kind of person would I be? All right, we out of here for real now. Love you guys. Have a great night. Thank you.